Okay, so I came home from my shop and I shot arrows. First thing I did at 18 metres was shoot a bare shaft against the group. The bare shaft hit about 10 centimetres to the left and high. So I thought to myself, well, what would happen if I wound up the poundage more? And would the arrows group better? So I continued to shoot with the spin wing arrows that night, and they shot okay. Most of the arrows were in the gold, and I was pretty happy with them. But I thought, well, what would happen if I actually had the bow tuned? Would they shoot better, and would they be more forgiving than my arrows with 120 grain points? So what I've done is I've come and I've wound the bow up another half a turn. Now half of a turn got me to 55 pounds. Now you've got to, when you wind up the bow poundage, it cannot get to a point where the limb bolt is sticking into the rise, into the limb at the front here, at this side. So I'm getting close to the point where I can't wind up these limbs anymore. So I'm up to 55 pounds. So what we're going to do, my clicker just moved, we're going to shoot some shots and we're going to see how they go down the other end. See if I can shoot 55 pounds. So start with I was shooting 51 with 500 spine arrows. When I wound it up to like a turn, the arrows became too weak, so I had to get some 400s. The 400s were too stiff. So that then led me to a problem, and that's the problem we're trying to solve. So we're up to 55 pounds, 200 grain points in the front. These are McKinney's, so we're just going to shoot some groups and hopefully these will go in the middle. Now I haven't warmed up. Now, the problem of not shooting pins is when you Robin Hood your arrow, you run the risk of doing damage to the arrow. But these were the purpose of these arrows. I was going to hope that these were going to be my cloud arrows. So we were going to shoot them over a chronograph and see how they shoot at 165. But I want to get them set for target. So I want to be able to shoot target scores with them. I want to have an arrow I can shoot target scores with that's slow enough and enough point weight that I can shoot 165. And I've put spin wings on because I'm hoping I can get them to shoot, and I'm hoping they will provide less wind play in the air for long distance, and I'm hoping the spinning will create more stability over the longer distance. One thing I can notice with these McKinney arrows compared to the Panderos, this is a bare shaft, is they're a 166 shaft, so slightly thicker arrow, so a 4.2 versus a 3.2, but you can hear that the material, the carbon, is more abrasive than the Panderos carbon. The Panderos carbon is a smoother carbon. So hopefully this arrow hits the target. It should be more in line with this group because it's gone up 2 pounds from last night. Okay, let's just, didn't look real good out the bow, so I'll just shoot one more with the spin wing on to see how the group is. Okay, so the bare shaft is slightly out, but it's not too bad, out to the left and fractionally high. So how high you adjust your knocking point. I don't want to do that because it's a new bow and I make a new string. The group itself is average. Now, I think I might be able to get the bare shaft to move in line with these arrows because it's only that much over 18 with the plunger button tension. And the question is, which way do I move the plunger button? At this stage, I normally look up the internet, but let's just work on principles. The bear shaft is shooting out to the left, so that means it's too stiff. So I think I've got to actually reduce my plunger tension. So what we're going to do is reduce my plunger tension. We're using a biter plunger, so it's very easy to dial back and forward. The biter plunger is an expensive plunger button, but it's a good plunger button, so it depends on your budget. So let's go and do that, and let's see what happens with the group. Now, with recurve, it's important to get the tune right because the arrow's got to flex around the riser. With compound, less so because the arrows are going to shoot pretty much dead straight. Now that didn't help. The biter plunger was loose, so I didn't use the. I obviously did not use. We're going to dial that back one full term. I did not use the biter wrench to put it on. I just put it on with my fingers. So let's put these down and let's see where they land. So I've reduced the plunger tension and I've actually tightened up the plunger because it was loose. The bow feels good, feels positive coming out. I mean, the thing I'm interested in with these 200 gram points is people have said it's more forgiving. I don't know if that's true or not, but I like trying stuff. And I should be down in the club shooting. This is a bear shaft. I should be down in the club shooting some scores with my standard bow. But if you don't try stuff and you don't experiment, you're never going to move forward. I don't think. And yeah, look, you can practice more and all that sort of stuff. But I'm hoping to get the bow sorted. And I'm hoping, well, and it takes time to sort your gear out. It takes time to tune your bow. It takes time to get arrows to work. You either go down the club and shoot, in which case you haven't progressed to that step that I need to get to in 4 weeks' time. What's interesting to me is I've been practicing bending this front arm, but as soon as I've gone up in poundage, I've just reverted back to normal. That's better. That's my problem with the spin wings. My ability to obviously stick them. Let's just pull that one off. All right, let's go down there and have a look. Okay, so this is interesting. So I've decreased the plunger tension. Decreasing the plunger tension is like moving the plunger in towards the bow. And you can see the group's actually, well, besides the other two, there's 3 really nice tight arrows. The bear shaft is still not great. Still not great. And this is why, like, I really dislike the whole tuning thing. which is the reason I didn't want to change the bow, because when I've got the bow set up, I want to leave it. I don't want to play with it. I want to just leave it all set the way it is. Let's do it again and sort of see if we're moving forward. I want to have a feel of that tension. I don't know if you've ever seen the Lars Anderson videos and everyone thinks that's how people shoot. It's to get an arrow to bend around the bow. Like, there's no marks on my bow, so the arrows are doing pretty good at bending around. But to get them to bend around exactly correctly is not trivial. And when Lars shoots off the wrong side of the bow and he does his things, it's like, I'm not having a go at him, by the way. It's just, I'm going to take another whole turn off the plunger. Let's see where this one goes. Just like, it's good when people do YouTube videos and they go, wow, look how good they are at 70 meters. And I'm like, but you don't shoot that good. In real life, people don't shoot that good. And if these archers were that good, they'd be shooting competitions and winning. And they're not that good. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking straight down the arrow, and the sight is dead in line with it, so like I'm close to where I want to be. And then I'm like, well, do I just wind up the poundage a little bit more? Now the problem with winding, these are 44 pound limbs and I have them on 55. Now with the Gillo rise you can wind that thing right up, but then if you shoot Euchre limbs, they don't warranty the limbs on a Gillo riser, because basically you're putting the limbs under too much stress. So just bear it in mind. Like for me, the reason I've always just jumped up in limbs is for this reason. I don't want to put the limbs under stress. I sell off my old limbs to someone else at the club who wants some limbs. Limbs are generally pretty easy to sell because there's always someone wanting another poundage set of limbs. Then I held my arm really tight. I just get the right plunger tension on your plunger. It affects how well those arrows group down the other end, which is why I don't like playing around with stuff. Like, I play around, I try it tighter, I try it looser, and I just check the groups. One of my friends in America messaged me. He said, you're shooting 53 pounds, you're getting strong. Like, I started at 32 pounds and it was heavy. I used to fatigue after 60 arrows, and this is just recently. Like, I did 30 good arrows, 30 average, then 30 terrible arrows, and I just couldn't finish it. But over 4 to 5 years, we've just been gradually going up in poundage. This is the one with the 2 vanes. I can't stress enough to work on technique, but also work on your bow, work on tuning, work on, look, does my grip get better if I put a little bit more tension on, if I put a little bit less tension on. Like I said, I don't normally wind up and wind down the limbs. I generally do exactly what I'm doing here, and I try and tune the arrows with point weight. In fact, normally when I jump from, like, I started off at 800 spine arrows, and I normally jump, this is the bare shaft. So I started at 800, I went to 700s, Then I went to 600s, then I went to 500s. It's generally every poundage of limb jumps up one thing. So I was like, well, it all kind of went nicely. It's just this one, it's probably 56 pounds I need to get 400s to work. But that's with 200 grain, so I don't even know what the 120s are going to be like. Alright, let's take a look. Okay, now this is getting kind of interesting to me. You can see the group. It's getting interesting to me. The actual bear shaft is almost at the same height now as the other arrows. And the other arrows aren't actually too bad a group. Hence my dilemma. I'm not really wanting to push that. You can see how far they've moved. So they've moved from the middle to there. That's with 2 turns of the plunger button down. I don't really want to drop it that much. Maybe we will drop it another one. I like a bit of tension on the plunger button, but maybe we'll just drop another bit and sort of see. Because it's... I'm really wanting to wind up the limbs another half a turn. Or even a quarter of a turn. Maybe 56 pounds will be the magic number. But it's not like the group's bad. The group I'm really happy with. So once I get the group, once I'm happy with the group, then I start shooting scores and see how it scores. And then, because I want to shoot these arrows for cloud, and cloud's my next competition, then I'll try them at cloud. But I also want to have my arrow set up for target, so it kind of leaves me in a bit of a, if I can actually shoot this poundage bow, 56 pounds, then I should be training with, and I should be shooting it in comps. So more problems, if you see where I'm going. So maybe I jump up for another set of heavier poundage limbs, and maybe I get those 120 grain points to work with the Pandarus arrows, with the other arrows, the Skylon Paragons. So that's kind of where I'm up. Now my plunger tension is quite loose. I'm just going to take another half a turn off. And the plunger was actually quite loose. I really need to lock it into the riser. Now what's good about this is, in my reviews I've done before, I've had trouble getting spin wings to work. I haven't got the same level of accuracy with them as I did with the impulse vanes, which is why I've always shot the impulse vanes. The accuracy I'm getting here with the spin wings is really good. Like really good. So while part of it I'm like, oh, I don't know, but the actual accuracy is pretty good. Now, the arrow should be more across to the side of the target. So another half a turn. Ideally I'd like the arrows in the center, but for the purpose of this video we're just leaving the sight where it is, because it feels better to me when the arrows go in the middle rather than off to the left. This is the bear shaft. Always get people coming in, what spine arrows do I use? I shoot a 20-pound bow at 26 inches, and I'm like, it's such a light poundage bow. It's going to be so hard to get those arrows to flex out. It's going to be very weak spined arrow. But like I'm doing here, it's still really hard to get the spine correct. what you've got to understand too is most people are at the beginner level. So, you know, their form's terrible. Not saying my form's great, but at least it's relatively consistent. As a beginner, you just want to get shooting. You know, like as long as the bow's basically set up, just get shooting, get building muscles, get building technique. Like what you, besides the right form and the right anchor point and all that, what you're looking for is timing, trying to get the timing through the clicker good so you don't get the shakes before the arrow goes off. You want to be through that quick clicker in a pretty good time, not too quick, and get the shot executed. Like that timing just there is really good. This is the 2 fletch one. At the Nationals I shot, I'd slowed it down a lot and I was fatiguing a lot. My muscles are just killing me because I was really trying to shoot good arrows rather than just executing the arrow. Got one more, so we'll shoot that. Okay, so I haven't got this bear shaft across in the group. Now, the group itself, I don't think it's as tight as the last group, and that could be my shooting. But you can see it's definitely moved across. So with that, I think I've done all I can with the plunger, and I'm actually going to wind it back up. I'm tempted to try more poundage, but before I do that, I'm actually going to wind up the clicker, wind up the plunger tension, probably 1.5, because I was pretty happy with the last end. And I'm going to shoot some scores, because while this is not ideal, it's close enough for me to go, well, let's shoot some scores and see how close it is. Because let's say I need 56 pounds to get the 400s to work with 200 gram points. It's still a big jump from 51 to 55. And I've got to see how my body copes with it. So there's a 2-step thing here. I want to get the arrows to work, but I also want to shoot arrows and my body not to fall apart. So with that, I think I'll also try the 120 grain tungstens and see how they shoot at the 55 pounds. But hopefully that's been informative. It's not simple. Again, use hot melt glue to put your points in, so that way you can take them out. And experiment with stuff, and just always focus on the shot and shoot lots of arrows, because it'll give you more consistency. I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching.